Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 659, Euro 2024 quarterfinal recap and semifinal preview. Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. Frank joins us with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, things are going pretty well. Feeling better by the day. So, so far looks good. As I recover, England kind of improve, or at least keep going. So we have to hope that trend continues through the semifinals.
You think that's a success?
I think there's a slight correlation between my health over the last few weeks and England's performances. I felt this hit me obviously the day after England played Serbia, so that was a win. And then, the low points were the remaining group games, and then gradually I've improved. So far, there does seem to be some kind of relation. We'll see if it continues.
Yeah. So is this not your official Make-A-Wish then?
No, I wouldn't waste it on this. If I got to, I'd be hoping for a little bit more than just watching England on TV as my Make-A-Wish. Sadly, I guess I'm too old for a real Make-A-Wish, but maybe we can lie about my age if it gets to that stage.
Okay. So what would then be? Would you want to be there? You want to be there and have a guaranteed win? You want to be at the championship match?
I don't know if they're going to let me have a guaranteed win. I don't think Make-A-Wish fixes matches for you. I don't think there's going to be a scandal as a result of a Make-A-Wish.
How specific can they fix it? Can you also place a really big wager?
That would be my Make-A-Wish. A, I want tons of money to place a bet. B, I want to fix the outcome of a result. And C, I want you to find me a bookie who will let me put that specific bet on for the amount that I want. But I think my Make-A-Wish would be let me take the fifth penalty if it goes to penalty shootouts. No one could get angry at me with the outcome. That would be the benefit. People would just have to accept whatever happens. They couldn't abuse the dying man. They probably would, but they would feel slightly bad about it after I actually died.
So I guess let's go ahead and go to the results.
Yeah, so in the end, it kind of went pretty much how we thought it would go, in the sense that obviously England, the Netherlands, and going through the Netherlands, the easiest of all of the quarterfinals. They got obviously the scare of falling behind to Turkey, but the only team to actually win in 90 minutes, even if they didn't win, They kind of dominated the match overall, but it wasn't quite as comfortable as they might have hoped for, and Turkey had some really good chances at the end to equalize. And then Spain and Germany, Portugal, France, kind of too close to call for the most part. Spain probably should have, will be disappointed that they conceded that late equalizer, and they did play well for large parts of that game, but at the same time, there were definitely periods where Germany were on top. And it kind of did feel once they equalized, you have to give the advantage to Germany at that point. And also, statistically, the team that's equalized does tend to do better in extra time as well. So it was a little bit surprising to see Spain getting the late winner in extra time.
Yeah, I think that was slightly unfortunate for Germany. I thought they could have won that match. And I did think once they put that equalizer in that they were going to go forward and win it. And they had a few good chances that they just missed in that extra time. And then even at the very end, even after Spain went up 2-1, then they still had 2 or 3 really good chances after that you thought it was going to happen and either just missed or just blocked or things like that. I did want to ask you about the no handball call there. I don't know if you remember that one, but
Yeah.
again, the handball rule seems to just confuse me more and more. Um, they say if it's tucked in a natural position, that's fine. But what about when your arm's out and you're moving it in to tuck it and it hits? Like that's not natural. Like it's not tucked yet. So I don't fully understand that. I mean, to me, that looked more like a handball than other handballs I've seen called. And the fact that they didn't even go to a review, I was shocked that at least didn't go to a review.
Well,
Because
they always review it. That's one
they
of the things
they
to make
review it,
clear.
but not to go to the VAR because then wouldn't the call then be then he goes and looks at it?
If the VAR feels like he's potentially made a mistake. So,
Yeah,
I mean, and then typically when you see the referee get asked to go and look at it on a monitor, you kind of know that he's going to overturn his decision because
it's gonna get overturned.
that's the VAR telling him we think you've made an error. But uh, I agree with you. I don't know what the handball rule is basically at this point, and I don't know if referees really do either. And I think that's the problem. So, in my view, that shouldn't be a handball. His arm is in a natural position. He's very close to where the shot was taken. He's not moving it to try and, it's not an intentional movement on his part, and he's far too close to be able to get his arm out of the way. So I think you have to say the, the right interpretation of what the law should be would be that isn't a handball. But then you think back to the penalty that Germany were awarded against Denmark, where it's a similar distance and the player's arm is out, but only because he's running. So it's in a natural position. Again, he doesn't have the time to get his hand out of the way. He's not moving his arm to try and block the ball. And that one's a penalty. And yes, there are slight differences between the two examples in terms of the arm being up, but it's up naturally. So I don't know. I think the inconsistency is the killer. And I sort of expected, again, I don't think it should have been a penalty, but when you saw the replay, I thought, oh, this is going to be a penalty. I don't like this, but it's going to be a penalty. And at this point, I just kind of don't know what is and what isn't. And I think it depends a little bit on what the nationality of the referee might be in terms of how they see certain things and how the domestic.
Ooh.
No, I mean, not controversially. I just mean like domestic leagues. Domestic
Yeah,
leagues have slightly different interpretations, and then they might be bringing those slightly different domestic interpretations to how they referee internationally, which is natural because that's how they're refereeing on a weekly basis. And yeah, it's not a good position to be in as a fan, as a player, to kind of not be totally certain of what the law is. And right now, I don't think we can say that there's consistency in terms of how it's being applied, and that's a major issue.
Yeah, the inconsistency really sucks. But and I agree with you. I feel like if the first one was a handball, then that one definitely was. And I feel like the Germany one, or I should say the Spain non-call, was worse than the first one that was called handball. So to me, either they both are or they both aren't. But if that first one's called, then that one should have been called.
As I said, I guess the advantage in the second one, and from the defender's perspective, is he's stationary and his arms just kind of down by his body. So aside from him putting his arms behind his back, which they're supposedly telling defenders not that they don't have to do anymore, if you're telling them that, then I don't really know what he's supposed to do. You're just punishing him for being unlucky that the ball was just kicked directly at his arm. So I think I'm slightly more comfortable with the Spanish incident not being a penalty and the Danish one being a penalty, but it's so marginal. Like in my mind, neither of them should be penalties. But
Yeah, and you know what? Watching those four matches, I feel like that was, to me, the most exciting of the matches, and it's a shame that was a quarterfinal match because that would have made for a great semifinal or a final. And I really hope that the semis and the finals will have that kind of like just how fun it was. Like it was just a really fun match to watch no matter who you were really rooting for. It was pretty back and forth. Both teams had a lot of chances. Both teams played well. So that was it was definitely more fun than I think any of the others, even though the others eventually went to penalties, which ultimately makes anything exciting, right? But the game itself, the match itself, within the 90 and then potentially extra time was the best. I thought by far.
I don't know. I thought the France-Portugal game was pretty good. It obviously lacked goals, but there were really good chances for both teams at different moments in time. The first half of that Spanish-German match was not great. I mean, again, you know what I always say, the ending of matches influences how we view them so much, and because you have the late German equalizer and then the late Spanish winner, you go, wow, what a game. And the reality is the first 55 minutes of it were pretty awful. And if either Portugal or France had managed to take any one of the number of good chances they had, we probably would have felt differently about that match. So I probably enjoyed the France-Portugal game more, but I think each one of the games had compelling elements. They all benefited from being close and with having everything up for grabs down to pretty much the last kick of the game. Obviously under different circumstances with two penalty shootouts versus a late winner in extra time versus, late chances missed by Turkey to equalize. But, from that perspective, we did at least have entertainment across all four matches.
Yeah, so you mentioned France-Portugal. So France moves on again without scoring a goal in open play.
Yeah.
Impressive, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to have made it to the semifinals without scoring a goal from open play. And they didn't. Obviously the big question is Mbappe looks completely off the pace at the moment. Whether or not that's because of his broken nose or just because he's slightly out of form, who knows? But he didn't look great. The fact that they had to sub him off in extra time before penalties were due to be taken. I mean, actually interesting that in both matches that went to penalties, you had the go-to penalty taker subbed off with sort of 10 minutes to go in extra time, which is pretty unusual. Like Kylian Mbappe and Harry Kane for England. But yeah, France don't look good. I mean, both France and England find themselves in kind of similar circumstances where they're definitely underperforming, but keep getting through. France are obviously beating better teams along the way, having knocked out Belgium and Portugal. That's more impressive than beating Slovakia and Switzerland. But, it's going to come down to, do you win the tournament or not? If either of these teams, well, obviously they can't both win the tournament, but if neither of them does, then the post-mortem will be that they've severely underperformed and not entertained in the process. But if they win, everyone will forget that they didn't play particularly well. You know what I mean? Like, no one remembers how well the team that wins played in the last 16. No one will care. They'll just remember you winning the final. So, for both of them, there's winning will fix all problems. But if either of them lose in the semifinal, they'll definitely face a huge amount of criticism, particularly in the case of England, but even in the case of France. That Portugal match for France, I mean, I thought Portugal were the better team. They had a host of really, really good chances. I don't know how they didn't score. And, they obviously, Roberto Martinez is facing some criticism for sticking with Ronaldo, for not bringing on some of the attacking players that they have. I think some of the Ronaldo criticism is overboard. He's one of the greatest players of all time. He kind of deserves to be out there, and in the end, he took his penalty and scored his penalty, so you can argue that it was worth keeping him on in the final minutes. And I think the way that Portugal are set up, the kind of center forward role that he's playing, doesn't get you too involved in play anyway. So whoever they'd replaced him with probably would have found themselves similarly isolated. But, look, it's popular now to hate on Ronaldo. It's the easy take to be critical of him. He should retire. We're all going to miss him when he's gone. And especially media members are going to miss him, because who are they going to talk about once Ronaldo's gone? He says he wants to play in the next World Cup. Good for him. I hope he's 41 years old playing every minute for Portugal in the 2026 World Cup because we need superstars. And he'll probably still be the fittest player on the pitch, and he'll probably still be pretty good. And Portugal won't be the favorites anyway, so who cares?
So, do you think him going to the Saudi League has impacted it? Like, do you think part of the reason why, even if he is just not in form, maybe he still does have it, but just not in form. Do you think that's because he's playing in the Saudi League where it's not as competitive, not as intense? He's not having to hone his skills as much, and then trying to come right back into, playing with the best in the world just isn't. He's not up to it right now.
I mean, who knows? But you'd have to say when you're not testing yourself as much on a weekly basis, it's probably a little bit harder to step into more competitive matches. Like in any sport, you would think that the speed at which he's having to, no matter how good he is, he's putting himself, it's the same thing people talk about almost. I know you don't want to bring up the topic, but like live golfers transitioning from the 3 rounds and maybe slightly less competitive weekly tournaments to then slipping into majors, and we see maybe a drop off in some of those performances from top golfers. And part of the explanation might be that they aren't facing the same level of pressure or the same level of competition on a weekly basis. And that's going to be even tougher in a sport where part of it is speed and reaction times to things that are going on around you, and the way in which defenders are reacting, and the tactical awareness of everyone. It's probably not helping him. But you could put the reverse spin and say, when you're 39 years old, do you benefit from playing in a weaker, slower league?
More
And
rest.
yeah, that he's into this in like less tired than he would have been had he been playing matches in the Premier League. So I don't know. You can kind of probably find positives and negatives. I don't think he was as bad in this tournament as people are making out. He took a lot of attempts. Even the big chance that he missed for Portugal, when the ball was cut back and he kind of had the goal in front of him, the ball was behind him. It's a lot harder than people think it is for him to control that, get it on target, and keep it down. It's not an easy skill. Most people
But
wouldn't.
5 years ago, does he make it, Eddie?
Probably not. But 5 years ago, he probably would have scored some of the chances that he's had over the course of this tournament. That's the difference. But some of that was bad luck too. But I guess that's probably enough Ronaldo talk. We can get on to the England match and the breakdown of yet another disappointing England performance that still ended in relief. Yes, joy would maybe be too strong of a word. Scraping through against Switzerland, who proved the tough challenge that we thought they might be. Obviously, I was optimistic that England would return to form in this match. They didn't. Probably didn't make quite as many changes as I would have hoped for going into it, although Southgate did shift formation and make a couple of big
He did
changes.
shift that formation.
He did, but then in the end, when it kind of, the hope was that Saka was going to play. Everyone said, "Oh, we switched to 5 at the back. Saka's going to play left wing back." And then he was still on the right, and Trippier was still left back,
Yeah.
and with Trippier playing left back, just like play grinds to a halt whenever England could move to the left because he doesn't have a left foot, and he just stops, turns around, and passes the ball backwards. So effectively, England, like, I'll give Saka credit. I've been critical of him over the course of this tournament. He was England's bright spot in that match, but they needed it because they were basically playing with half the pitch going forward.
Yeah.
And that makes
Yeah, I loved it. It was like, oh, new formation. And then they played exactly the same. Like, nothing changed. It was the exact same shit we've seen for the last 3 weeks now. It was really funny to me.
The only thing it managed to do was bring Foden into a central role, and he was a bit more involved in play and was able to dictate things a bit more, and that was a positive for England. They also pressed a lot better as a result of that shift in formation, so it actually allowed them to kind of be playing in the right parts of the field and to make it harder for Switzerland to get out of their own half. But realistically, there weren't as many changes as you would have hoped for. Um, you know, based on what it looked like on paper was going to be a massive shift in terms of how they were going to play. And the Trippier's problem has to be solved. Hopefully, Luke Shaw came on and played the last 45 minutes of that match, including extra time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's enough for him to start the match against the Netherlands on the basis of what he did. But if not, Trippier can't
Maybe, but
play.
did he do much?
Oh, they were
I
way
mean, if
better.
anything, at least you think?
Yes. No, no. I mean, it was infinitely better. You still had you can actually point to moments once they made those changes and in extra time when England were threatening down the left-hand side of the pitch. They weren't up until that moment because Trippier can't cross the ball with his left foot, so there's no
Yeah.
point. He can't offer an overlap. There's no way for them to really pose any huge problems, and that's going to be even more important for them against the Dutch. So, this is if I'll be instantly mildly depressed if I see Trippier playing left back in the semi-final. And I quite like Trippier as a player, but he's not being helped by Southgate playing him out of position, and it's just a massive, massive shame because they're really limiting the way in which they can play. And I think that has a spillover effect on lots of players. And I think you even saw over the course of that match, they didn't even want to pass. They kind of gave up passing the ball to Trippier at a certain moment in time. They would kind of work their way to the left, and then like Declan Rice or Bellingham or Foden would decide, no, you know what, we'll recycle the ball to the right now and hope for the best. And yeah, I mean, it just wasn't a great experience.
Yeah, so Luke Shaw was subbed in the 78th minute, so about 40, a little over 40 minutes. So, at the very least, then he got some quality game time fitness in there, playing at a hard pace. So he should be way more fit for the next match. And I agree. He's got to start.
I don't
Like,
necessarily think he has to
oh,
start, but it has to be him or it has to be Saka at left wing back. And I think
but
Saka's.
it's not going to. We've already said that's not going to happen, right?
It could have done. I think based on the performance that Saka put in on at the weekend, it's unlikely that they're going to shift him to left wing back now because he was England's biggest attacking threat. So it would be a slightly weird move to then take him away. He might not play five at the back. If Luke Shaw's fit enough, then that might see them return to four at the back with Luke Shaw just at left back is a possibility, which I wouldn't be opposed to, assuming they really think Luke Shaw is fit enough to play 90 minutes. But yeah, I mean, that's England's biggest problem. I know there'll be people who are very heavily critical of Harry Kane. I think people are being too hard on him. I think he does a lot of dirty work for this England team, whether that's dropping back to defend or dropping back to kind of try and get involved in play. And he's just super isolated up front. It's not like he's missing a ton of chances, you know. Weirdly enough, he's still one of the top goal scorers in the competition. Like there's a chance he ends up winning the Golden Boot if he can score 2 or 3 goals in the semifinal
Yeah.
and the final. So it hasn't been a tournament filled with goals, and he hasn't been missing a ton of chances, but he hasn't been great. I'm not going to make out this is not Harry Kane's finest moments in an England shirt, but I think people, similar to the Ronaldo factor, I think sometimes people hone in on one particular player to try and figure out what's going wrong, and I think it doesn't necessarily really look at why play is breaking down or why things aren't working.
So how do you feel about him being subbed out?
Well, it appeared he kind of took a knock, so I also, I mean, he looked so tired towards the end of that extra time before he was subbed. I thought they should have taken Jude Bellingham off it all, as well, because for the last 10 minutes of extra time, Jude Bellingham was basically a scarecrow on the pitch. So there's that moment where you think to yourself, like, what's the point in having him out there? Obviously, Jude Bellingham scored his penalty, so that somewhat justifies it, but England could have, Switzerland created a host of chances towards the end of extra time, and England could have, gone out in part due to the fact that they just looked dead on their feet in some positions. So, I didn't mind, and Tony obviously is such a good penalty taker based on the record that he has in the Championship in the Premier League that although Kane is a great penalty taker, you're not losing out necessarily by bringing Tony into that situation, even though he might not have the sort of high pressure experience that Kane has taking penalties. That didn't bother me. They needed fresh legs at that point, and also Kane had the potential knock. It made sense.
And then in terms of the penalties, were you happy with that lineup put out there? Or was there ever a point where you said, like, really? He's going to take it?
The order slightly surprised me, I suppose, but no. I mean, I'm in a group chat. I think that's the five I picked when it went to penalties, just based on not necessarily who I thought were the best penalty takers, but obviously you have some indication. You brought Tony on; he's a great penalty taker. He was obviously going to take one. They brought Trent Alexander-Arnold on with 5 minutes to go. That was obviously with a view to taking a penalty. Then you have, Saka, who has taken penalties for Arsenal, so you feel comfortable that he's as experienced as most people on the England side. You knew Bellingham was going to take one just because he's Jude Bellingham and he's got a massive ego, and there's no way he's not taking a penalty. And I mean that in both a slight criticism because he does like being the center of attention, but also as a positive. You need people who want to be the hero in that moment. And then Cole Palmer takes penalties for Chelsea and seems to have zero sense of pressure.
Or does he not? Or does he not understand it?
That might be part of the reason, but I genuinely, I think I saw interviews post match. Obviously, Tony, the fact that he doesn't look at the ball is remarkable. Like, I don't know how you don't do that. The precision he has to have in his run up and the confidence he has to have in all of that is crazy. Um, you have him, who obviously has this meticulous preparation to how he's taking a penalty. He goes up, he goes up with the idea in his mind of where he's going to put it, but he's watching the goalkeeper. So if the goalkeeper doesn't move, he goes to the corner that he's already selected. But listening to him break down how he prepares and sort of thinks about penalties, there's so much detail. And then they ask Cole Palmer, like, what do you do? And I just go up and take it. I don't know where it's going before I get there.
I saw that video.
No, but they
said only once.
No, but
post match.
Post match, and I just get there and just take it. And there's a certain.
I saw an interview with him when they asked him a similar question, and he's like, I just go up and take. He's like, only one time in my life did I have one prepared, and he's like, the only reason I did it is because everyone in the practice the day before said I wouldn't do it, and I wanted to do it, so I did it. He said, like, other than that, he just goes in and takes it, which is great. Like, that's just, the level. I mean, I think some people might criticize him, but for me, as playing in a sport where you do take penalties similarly, to me, that is such a sign of just being so confident in your abilities and it being a good thing that, like, you don't have it. I think sometimes I think the more planned out you are, it's that you're like so nervous and not confident in yourself that you do that. Not all the time. And there are obviously people who like are very, like whether it's looking at the advanced statistics or anything like that, or they just know like this is my go-to, so I'm going to do. But I don't think that's a criticism of him. I think that's a sign of just how confident he is in his abilities. Like, I could never do it, but it seems to work for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people do overcomplicate taking a penalty. Ultimately, it should be kind of easy, and we do try and turn it into this really complex process. And it's like, well, no, you're, taking a fairly straightforward attempt on goal that you would expect to score 90+% of the time, and you should do so. And if you can somehow eliminate that extra level of pressure and don't get too much in your own head about the process, it's the same reason why sometimes, like, Pickford's got all that data on his water bottle in terms of breaking down the tendencies of where players like to go. That's great. I mean, I guess it helps you. But at the same time, if I know that the goalkeeper knows that I like to go left, surely I go right. You know what I mean? Like, at what point does the data...
Or do you go left again because he thinks you think that he knows that you know?
But that's the point. Is like, at a certain point, does the data really help you at all? Because if you know the other person has the data, it's either a bluff or a double bluff. Like, Who knows what's
Yeah.
going on? So you kind of get back to square one at a certain point anyway. But and look,
I guess
having
leading into that real quick, leading into that, then do you give Pickford credit for that save, or you just say that was a awful penalty?
the Akanji penalty certainly wasn't good, but I think you give the goalkeeper credit anytime he goes the right way. I
Okay.
think just going the right way means sometimes there are fantastic saves from penalties. That was not one of them. But as soon as you've gone the right way, you deserve a bit of credit, whether that's sheer luck or reading the hips and the foot position, like the landing foot position, or knowing just the tendencies that a player might have in terms of taking penalties. Whatever that is that helps you to go the right way, who knows? But yeah, I give him credit because ultimately it's the thing you can always say about penalties. If that Akanji penalty was awful, but if Pickford goes the other way and Akanji has just kind of rolled that ball into the net, people go, "Well, cool, calm, and collected. What a penalty! Like good penalty." So
Yeah.
yeah, I still give the
Tony's
goal.
no look was sick.
It's tough,
The
yeah.
the angle, just what the one camera angle where you can actually literally see he's not only is he not looking at the ball, he's looking in the other way too. He's like Mahomes no look passing it, but obviously with like a
He's
kick.
looking at the goal.
It
He's looking
was
at the goalkeeper. That's just what he's
But he was
doing.
actually looking. It looks like he was looking more to the right, and then he
No, no,
kicks it
no,
to the left.
no, no. He's staring at the goalkeeper. He wants to watch and see the goalkeeper move. So his goal is just to watch the keeper. If the goalkeeper moves early, he goes the other way. But he says if the goalkeeper doesn't go early, he knows which way he's going. In that instance, he still took a good penalty because this goalkeeper went the
Yeah,
right way, and he still managed to score. Which I think that would be the thing that would worry me about that approach. Obviously, he's incredible from the penalty spot. The thing that would worry me is it's a little bit like the Jorginho move. Like when it gets the goalkeeper to move, or if you're watching the goalkeeper and he does move early, but I would just worry that you panic and it's like, oh my God, he hasn't moved. And now I'm staring at him and I'm like, now it's going to be a great penalty because he might actually go the right way. That would be the thing. Tony seems to have confidence that no matter what, he's going to put it in the side, the very side netting, so it doesn't really matter. But and part of me thinks if you're that confident in your ability to take the penalty, why don't you just put it in that corner anyway? Like that's just when you listen to his explanation of what he's planning, he's like, "Well, I think I'm going to take such a good penalty the goalkeeper can't save it." It's like, well, then why are you bothering with the staring at the goalkeeper
yeah.
nonsense? Just take the
Let,
really good penalty.
let's just say let's just say Tony's betting on himself.
Yes, but yeah, no. And look, England's taking 5 penalties, scoring 5 penalties. All 5 penalties were good. Uh, you know, that's and look, this England side, Southgate deserves a ton of criticism for the formation, tactics, selection that he has. The refusal to make substitutions until like the 70th, 75th minute, basically until England are losing. I mean, it felt like he basically wasn't going to make a substitution there until a goal was scored one way or the other. And that was so frustrating to watch because, again, you could sense the goal was potentially coming for Switzerland for 5 or 10 minutes. And a good coach, a good manager, I think, can feel that momentum shift and think, I need to preemptively, and it's not even really preemptive because the shift has already happened, but before a major incident in a match happens, you think, let me make a change to try and wrestle back momentum here. He never does that. He didn't do it in that match. He didn't do it in the final of the Euros against Italy, where we kind of experienced a similar thing.
Oh.
And he can be out coached from that perspective. He deserves all the criticism in the world for that. But the change that he has brought about in this England team in terms of confidence, in terms of inner belief, is remarkable. Like we're watching England teams now win just multiple penalty shootouts. That would have been inconceivable before the Southgate era. I actually went into that penalty shootout expecting England to win. Like I felt somewhat confident. I thought we got pretty good penalty takers, and actually, you know what? Pickford's done well in penalty shootouts before. So I actually think, and once Pickford saved the Akanji one, I thought, oh, England are going to win this shootout. Because in my mind, I thought
Even
even if,
even with Saka.
yeah, I felt confident Saka was going to score. But
Okay.
I thought even if England miss one, I think Pickford will save another. Like that was in my mind. I thought, oh, England, advantage England. Switzerland are now going to have to save two penalties, or England are going to miss two. One way, whichever way you look at it. That's what it felt like, which is what happened in the final of the Euros too. It's just England kept missing, but like,
Yeah.
but I felt pretty confident, and I think it's interesting. People can kind of mock slightly the psychological focus that Southgate has at times. England have made some pretty significant shifts in terms of how they approach the penalty shootout compared with other teams. It was very noticeable in that match. For example, if you compare it with all three of the other side that took penalties in the quarterfinals and the build up to the penalty shootout, they all gather together. All the players, substitutes, players who've been subbed off, they're all in a big circle listening to the team talk. England, it was the 11 players who were available to take penalties. That was it. Substitutes, everyone else was away, not involved in that team talk. Just the people who were potentially going to take a penalty and key members of staff. Similarly, they don't lock arms on the halfway line. Every other team locks arms. They stand individually so that and the psychological reason that they've gone into it, we've had obviously sports psychologists on, is so that when the player leaves or when he's returning, he doesn't view as if it's his team and him isolated. He walks back to a group that is there to welcome him versus looking at one single unit that he's kind of walking back to that he's not part of. And then they also do that weird thing where each penalty taker is like assigned a buddy. I don't know if you noticed that too. So, for example,
I didn't notice that.
So like every penalty taker, after they've taken their penalty, there's another member of the England team who walks like 25 yards to meet them and walk back to the halfway line with them. So that either he's congratulating the penalty taker, or if the player had missed,
Or
he doesn't.
yeah.
So that he doesn't have to walk that whole way back, sort of in misery by himself. And then equally, Pickford comes and meets the penalty taker and gives the penalty taker the ball outside the penalty area to again have that final moment where you're trying to make that penalty taker and feel like he's not alone. And all of that can feel a little bit like nonsense, but you really look at it and these are like very small changes in areas that they're focusing on to try and shift the psychological balance and just give you those small advantages when it comes to taking a penalty. Those are the things that Southgate does super, super well. I just wish he could make better substitutions and make them faster.
See, it's really unfortunate that we can't go back and change history and see your reaction, because I would love if that weren't England, but that were France. Would you be saying the same thing about France and be like, what's great about France? These little psychological tweaks they made in the penalties. So good. I really appreciate it.
No, I mean 100%. I don't know why every other team, seeing what England have done in terms of those types of changes, isn't doing that and immediately. Like, why would you have a sub like when you're giving the team talk about penalties, when you're trying to make that final decision who's taking a penalty? Why would you have a substitute who's not taking a penalty involved in that discussion? Why do you want that player talking to a guy who's about to take a penalty, saying you should take one? You should be in the 5. No. He should take one. What do you want them there for? Get them out. Let the people focus. Do all the little bits and pieces that you think can just help have a bit more confidence. I would have equal respect for all teams. I do think, I don't think that's why England, with buddy system and Pickford meeting them, I don't think that's why England are winning penalty shootouts. And they might be in another penalty shootout and miss all 5. This is not some kind of guaranteed win that they've put in place. But I respect any team that's trying to get those little wins. The problem I have with England is they're trying to get little wins in a penalty shootout and not trying to do it in the 90 minutes. That's the issue. Where are all of these smart technical changes for the rest of the time? Why can't we be equally intelligent and advanced in how we approach games over the course of the full 120 minutes and not just in the penalty shootout that follows? That's the thing that bothers me.
Well, I guess wrapping up the quarterfinal, I have one stat for you, Eddie. Are you ready?
Sure.
Every team that won the quarterfinals had a lower XG than their opponent.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Certainly in the case of England and France, it makes perfect sense. The Netherlands is a little surprising, although Turkey did have those really good chances at the end, which will have probably been the thing that swung it. Uh, I would have thought Spain and Germany must be really close from an XG perspective, even if Germany have maybe slightly edged it.
Yeah, so the Germany one was Germany were basically 2, and Spain were 1.46. So about a half a goal higher. None of them were like crazy difference, but I figured in a podcast where we've been talking about XG all Euros tournament, it was surprising to see that no team that won actually had the higher XG.
Yeah, and on that note, should we shift on to maybe a quick look and prediction, bit of a preview for the semifinals? Obviously, the first one tomorrow, as we're recording, or today, as our listeners are listening to it, if they've got to this on the day of the release, is Spain against France. You know, of the two, I guess maybe the slightly more compelling semifinal in the sense that these two teams have proven themselves a bit more over the course of the knockout stages. Spain, top goal scorers in the competition, definitely seem the informed team of the four remaining sides, the most impressive so far.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm just going to stick with what I thought going into this tournament for both of these matches, and that is who I thought the better team was going in. I know that's probably not the right thing to do because, you know, teams do have ups and downs, but for me, I don't have a great reason as to why, but I think France and England will both advance here. Those were the two teams I picked going into it that would do really well. I did say Germany obviously would do really well. I think I predicted them in England in the final, but I always kind of said France would be like the other team going in there. So I know Spain have looked better than France going into this match, but France is defensively they've looked really good, I think, and I don't think Spain have played that good of a defense. So I think that's going to change things up a little bit. But eventually, Mbappe's got to do something. Like, I know he hasn't looked great, but he's still one of the best players in the world. And unless this injury is really, really affecting him, I think at some point he's just going to get a couple of nice plays and make a difference and score a goal. And I think France will win this 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to completely disagree with you on pretty much every area there. I think Spain will win this in 90 minutes. I think they'll completely outclass France. I think I'm not sure France have really looked that good defensively. I mean, Portugal created a host of really good chances against them and should have scored multiple goals. And, you know, France were lucky to, you know, France had a couple of chances. They had those brief periods where they looked good going forward, but, you know, fundamentally the pace and the movement of Portugal caused them a tremendous amount of problems. I think this is a much better matchup based on what we've seen from these two teams so far through this tournament for Spain than it is for France. You know, Spain are going to feel comfortable dominating possession. They're kind of built defensively to deal with France coming on the counterattack, which is what France will plan on doing against any team, but especially in this situation. And yeah, I just think there's no way France keep a clean sheet in this. So they're going to have to find a goal. They're going to possibly have to find two goals. And I don't think, unless we see a significant improvement from them going forward, that's going to be possible. You know, aside from that, I'll give you some interesting statistics heading into this match. These teams have played three times in the knockout stages of the Euros: 1984, 2000, and 2012. Every time they've played in the knockout stages of the Euros, the team that has won that matchup has gone on to win the trophy. So, in terms of saying, is this the final? Historically, I guess it kind of is. So there's that interesting one. But yeah, I think I think the edge here is just with Spain. It could all change if Mbappe suddenly finds form, but you know, Spain we've talked about potential records, obviously, with England heading into the last round. For Spain, if they win this match in 90 minutes, if they win this match, even actually including extra time, so they will be the first team to win six consecutive matches at a European Championship. So there's a chance for them to set a little bit of a record there. But no, I think Spain have the edge in pretty much every department aside from the Mbappe factor. And so far, Mbappe hasn't been a factor. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, surprising they've only played each other 3 times in the last 10 years. I find that slightly surprising considering how successful both countries have been, So, like,
Well, Spain haven't been that successful in the last 10 years, though. They've gone out in group
I guess
stages.
that's true.
So it's a weird one where actually Spain's really good period. If you look back, actually, both of these sides have had periods of very good performances, and they haven't really overlapped. So you have
Overlapped.
the very good French side of the late 90s, early 2000s. Spain weren't great in that time period. Then Spain were great from 2008 to 2014. France weren't in that time period. And then 2016 onwards, France have been really good and Spain really haven't been. So this is the first time that we're really getting to see maybe two good versions of both of these countries in a while. But, it feels like this is a Spanish team built for the future, but also performing extremely well in the present. And it feels like we're kind of seeing a France team that doesn't quite know who they are and where this is the end of an era, where you have the likes of Giroud and Griezmann and Kante still playing. And, this is the last hurrah for a number of their key players. And it feels that way. Like, and this is a Spanish team where the kind of core elements that we're watching here will be around for at least 2 or 3 more major tournaments. So I don't know. It's the best player on the pitch is going to be playing for France, but the best team I think is Spain.
And then the last time they met was in the UEFA Nations League final in 2021. And that was a 2-1 win by France with Mbappe scoring the game winner. But now a long time ago, 3 years. So,
yeah. Well, then we can move on to the Netherlands-England second semi-final, which takes place on Wednesday evening. It means obviously the winner of this will have one less day of rest ahead of the final on Sunday. Again, this is a little bit tough to call in the sense that the Netherlands have definitely looked better over the course of the tournament. It's kind of not dissimilar to the first semi-final, but in different ways where you would have, coming into this tournament, thought England were definitely better than the Netherlands, but the Netherlands have looked the better side so far. And then it's a question of, will we see additional improvement from England? You throw in the additional factor of England have had to go play 60 extra minutes to get to this stage over the past week or so. Netherlands slightly fresher legs, having dodged that bullet against Turkey in a match that looked like it might go to extra time. The only ones who didn't have to play, an extra period of football.
very true.
That's probably a slight advantage for them. A little bit fresher. That being said, Netherlands have looked pretty good, and Cody Gakpo has been scoring lots of goals for them. I still just have some doubts over how good they are up front, and I think that's where England could benefit in the sense of not having quite that fear of either the pace or the precision from this Netherlands team. So I think England will qualify. Again, I'm going to say the same thing in a sense that I said going into the Switzerland match. I think this is when we'll see kind of the real England. I think this is where England win in 90 minutes. I think this is where we see a good performance. I think this is where Harry Kane scores to silence some of the doubters. Some of that is based on the hope that there is a different player playing at left back or left wing back. But, I do think things will improve from an England perspective. that extra time could be a factor. That being said, if England go to extra time in the semifinal, they will be only the fourth team in the history of the European Championships to go to extra time three times in a single tournament. Only been previously done by Portugal in 2016, Spain in 2020, and Italy in 2020. I guess the good news for England there is two of those sides won the European Championship. So again, if this does go to extra time, I guess that's a little bit of a good omen for England.
Yeah, and two clubs or two countries that haven't had much history in these types of competitions. So their last matchup in either the Euros or the World Cup was back in '96, and that was a 4-1 win by England. Do you remember who scored in those goals in that game, Eddie? Do you remember that random match?
I wasn't random, obviously, because Euro '96 up until recently is the best tournament of my lifetime. And it's kind of the first. England obviously didn't qualify for the World Cup in 1994, so Euro '96 is the first major tournament I remember with England being involved. '92, I was only 5, so I don't really remember. Like that's I wasn't in a position. '96, I can actually remember watching matches. I don't remember who scored in the 4-1 win. I could take some guesses based on who key squad
You
members
could take
were.
an easy guess.
Alan Shearer scored, I'm going to guess.
He had two.
Um, I'll say Paul Gascoigne scored.
He did not.
All right. Teddy Sheringham
There's another
scored.
two. Yeah, he had two. That
Okay,
was their
very good.
four.
But yeah, no, I mean, England and the Netherlands actually, I was speaking off podcast with former co host Sam, not played
Who?
each other very, yeah, not played each other very much. These are, it's interesting for two of Europe's biggest footballing nations. Not a big history of playing each other frequently. They had the Nations League match not long.
2019 was our last.
Yeah,
2019. That was the last match in Nations League, and that was Netherlands won that 3-1.
but never drawn in groups against each other in World Cups or Euros, and very rarely play each other
Nope.
in the knockout stages. It's just not a. It's interesting for, as I said, two of the bigger footballing nations in Europe. No real history of being up against each other. For England, another record, or trying to put themselves in somewhat selective company. Obviously, trying to be back-to-back finalists. Quite rare for teams to make consecutive finals of the European Championships. Only 3 countries have done it. The USSR in 1960-64, so they no longer exist. So I
Spain.
don't know it. Spain in 2008, 2012. And do you want to take a guess at the other nation? It's also a fairly obvious one.
Is it? It's got to be Spain, and then who else has won it a bunch? Germany.
It is Germany. Germany have done it multiple times. So Germany have made the final in 19 in consecutive years, consecutive editions, 72 and 76, then 76 and 80, then 92 and 96. So they've done it on 3 occasions.
Let me ask you this. This was a question I was thinking about last night. If England make the final again, regardless of whether they win or lose, let's say before the match, so you don't know the outcome at that point, does Southgate get any credit for bringing a team to back-to-back Euro finals? I mean, for a guy who is criticized constantly, at what point do you have to give someone credit for, in 3 major competitions, bring a team to the final in 2 of them?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously, he's changed the expectation with England team. I was thinking about it a little bit because obviously I have my nephew. This is the kind of first major tournament he's watching as an England fan. And I thought to myself, like, this is what he's starting to expect from England, like making semifinals, winning penalty shootouts, scoring last minute equalizers, falling behind, in the 70th minute and then equalizing and still qualifying. Those are things that would have been, for me as a child, nothing I'm familiar with when it comes to supporting England, like quite the opposite. So, that's a very different experience. But yes, Southgate would deserve some, you look at his tournament performances and it would be a semifinal of a World Cup, potentially, let's say, two finals of the Euros, and a quarterfinal of the World Cup where he lost to France in a close match. That's a record that no England manager has had in terms of delivering consistency and making the latter stages of a tournament. And he's definitely shifted expectations. The expectations of England were always, well, we should be good enough to make the semifinals or the final. But the reality was quarterfinals and out. So he has,
It's always coming home, but it really
and
wasn't.
it's going to be tough for whoever follows him, because, that's going to be like, now it is, if you're not making the semifinals, it's definitely failure. That being said, they've had such easy paths in all of these competitions that it's an asterisk that has to be applied to the success. It's a type of draw that England teams in years past could have only dreamt of. And I do think that's important. And unfortunately for him, if it doesn't end in actually winning a trophy, people are going to say, yeah, you got to the semifinals and the finals, but who did you beat? So I think the only way, if they go and play the Netherlands off the park and then they lose in a close match in the final, people will probably give them a great deal of credit. But if they scrape by in a boring manner against the Netherlands and then lose, you know, convincingly to either Spain or France, it's going to feel like, okay, you've got a good record on paper, but when we dig a little bit deeper into this, you beat, the biggest win on his resume is going to be that Germany win in the last 16 of the last Euros. And, that was a period for Germany where things really weren't very good. And other than that, it's the likes of Denmark, Switzerland. It's really not, it's all teams England should have expected to have beaten. And that's going to be his problem unless he actually wins a tournament.
Yeah. And I mean, you could make the argument, yes, they've had easy kind of tournaments in a way in the knockout stages, but they've won their last three groups that they've been in, the last two Euros and the World Cup. So you have to get some credit for winning that group to get put into that easy side of the bracket. If they don't win that, then they likely get dropped into that tougher side of the bracket. And I know that part's random in a sense, but you're still winning your group every time.
But they won this group.
I don't know. It's just interesting. It's just interesting to me that Southgate will get so criticized, but yet England they've done better in these last three tournaments than they have in many, many years.
They have done, but yeah, they won the group this time, but they beat Serbia 1-0 in fairly unconvincing fashion, and then they drew two of the matches. It's not like they swept aside the group and then, yes, you've sneaked through the qualifiers, but you did your job. They've been unimpressive in every match so far, basically. And, here's the thing: is the realistic assessment would be, look through tournaments in my lifetime. Was it better to lose to Portugal on penalties in the quarterfinals of the World Cup or the Euros, in the two instances that England did it under Sven-Göran Eriksson? Or would it be worse, or would it be better to scrape by Slovakia and Switzerland and lose to the Netherlands in the semi-final against a not great Netherlands team? I'd probably say that Sven-Göran Eriksson's tournaments were, if that's how it's going to end for England in the semi-finals here, that in a sense things were better. The football was certainly more exciting. The team felt better in terms of how it performed. This tournament, the unfortunate thing for Southgate is actually in some of the prior tournaments, England have played some really nice football. It's just the possibility here that he ends on a somewhat sour note with like the worst on-field performances unless he delivers the most success in terms of actually, in the very least, making the final, but certainly winning the tournament at this stage. Because even now, you kind of do that assessment. Like England obviously came into this tournament as joint favorites. They're the least informed side of probably any of these four semifinalists. But you also look and you can pick holes in all of the other semifinalists. So you look at this Dutch team and think, a semi-final against this Dutch team, you would have taken that pre-tournament. They're not great. And then you look on the other side and think, a France team that hasn't scored from open play and who look to have major problems going forward, that could be your opponent in the final. We'll take that. Okay, a young Spanish team, but a lot of inexperience. I mean, we've spent years mocking Morata, and now that's what we're going to be afraid of up front against us. We'll take that. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of pick major holes in all of their opponents the same ways that you can pick holes in England. But it means there's probably never been an easier final to win based on who is in the semifinal setup in, the last 10, 14 years of international football. And at the same time, this is probably, England are probably on paper the best team in the tournament. So Southgate should have high expectations. Like, we shouldn't credit him too much for just kind of doing what he should do, which for the most part, it feels like that's what the Southgate experience has been. But again, going back to like the penalty approach and stuff, he deserves so much credit for changing the mentality and the mindset of England players in the England camp, and to a certain extent, even England fans. I just wish he were a little bit more creative in terms of tactics and selection. But we'll see. Look, if he wins it, he's getting knighted. A few of these England players are getting knighted. It's definitely, if they win it, it's definitely Sir Gareth Southgate. It's definitely Sir Harry Kane. It's probably eventually Sir Jude Bellingham. It's probably Sir Bukayo Saka.
Saka?
It's
Sir Saka?
probably it's probably Sir Jordan Pickford. That will be a weird one. But probably, I don't know who else, one or two others, maybe Sir John Stones, but yeah, we'll see. But the expectations are rightfully high for this England team, and I don't think Southgate has exceeded expectations at any point during his tenure. He's just been maybe the best England manager ever of just matching expectations.
And then just to close, according to FIFA rankings, this will be number 2 ranked France versus number 8 ranked Spain, and number 5 ranked England versus number 7 ranked Netherlands.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the FIFA rankings. I think they're a complete joke, but
I know. That's why I said it.
In that instance, it probably feels about right for most of those teams. But yeah, I mean, the FIFA rankings are utter nonsense. The one thing I can't wait to see the US plummet and this isn't me being anti-US, it's just the US's FIFA rankings outrageously high at times. And I'm hoping that Copa America disappointment will at least set them back a little bit, but it probably won't. They'll probably still somehow be ranked.
Currently ranked 11th,
Oh my God.
with teams like Germany ranked 16th, Switzerland ranked 19th. Let's see. I'm trying to see other teams that did well in this tournament. Austria ranked 25th. And then even in their own Copa America, Uruguay is ranked 14th below them.
Where's Colombia
ranked?
Right
Now off to Colombia is ranked 12th, also below them.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, for example,
or 13th, 12th, 13th, they're tied for 12th.
If I had to bet my life, if it was a one-off winner takes all, and the taking all is me either dying or living, Colombia versus the USA, Germany versus the USA, I'm not thinking twice about who I'm taking in either of those matchups, and yet somehow the US are ranked higher than both of those opponents. That's why the FIFA rankings don't make any sense to me. And that isn't me. I'm singling out the US, but I could pick a host of countries where I'd also apply that to, and like Canada are going to be
I mean,
ranked
you could.
way too high on the back of qualifying for the last World Cup and now their performance, making the semifinals of Copa America, potentially the final, although I expect them to lose to Argentina. But, like Canada are going to climb those rankings, and that's also going to be a joke.
Currently ranked 48th.
Definitely going to be top
Seems fair.
25. I don't know if it does, though, because there's probably 20 countries in Europe who I would feel confident would beat Canada.
Okay, well, I'll tell you the countries in Europe that are below. Greece is at 51.
Yeah,
Slovenia at 57.
probably beat Canada. Greece would be
Ireland
iffy.
Ireland at 60.
Yeah,
See, at least this is closer. Like
it's closer.
you're debating here. There
Yeah.
is no fucking debate. If you told me Germany are playing the U.S. tomorrow, here's $1,000. If you lose, you die. If you win, you get your money. What are you taking?
Well, I don't think I'm taking that. I don't think that particular bet. I'm not that desperate for $1,000, so I don't think I'm going to take that particular bet. Let's make it a few million and I'll consider it. But like, you're right in the sense that I would not bet my life on Slovenia beating Canada. So
Yeah.
that is different. I would happily bet my. Now I'm not saying the U.S. could, of course, surprise Germany. Like I could end up dying, but I would like my chances. All right, what non-Euro, non-footballing topics do you have to discuss? Oh,
Well, I
one
guess
little.
you're. I'm gonna say. Well, real quick. I mean, we just kind of teased the Copa America, who that also had their semifinal, or sorry, had their quarterfinals last week, and you had Argentina advancing on penalties, Canada advancing on penalties, Colombia just dismantling Panama, and Uruguay beating Brazil in penalties, which is now you have Argentina, Canada, your absolute classic Copa America matchup that everyone was hoping for,
Fierce
and
rivalry.
Uruguay, Colombia.
Co-
The fiercest of rivalries.
Copa America's always been
Empanadas versus poutine at its finest.
Copa America's always been known for the intensity of those rivalries and the fan hatred. It's one of the things that makes the tournament really special, and nothing says semifinals of Copa America to me more than Canada against Argentina. So it's the matchup everyone was hoping for. I mean, obviously for Canada, remarkable achievement, and they deserve a ton of credit. They played really, really well to get as far as they have done. Argentina came into the tournament as favorites. It looks like things are lining up for them really well. Brazil, obviously, the disappointment of the quarterfinal stage to go out. But Colombia have looked super impressive. So,
Yeah.
and James Rodriguez, who obviously starred in the 2014 World Cup, and then his club career has kind of fallen apart since his move to Real Madrid. He's looked fantastic in this tournament. He's probably going to convince a European team to spend too much money on him before he doesn't play at all next season. But, he's looked, again, it looks like you're watching the 2014 World Cup when you see what he's doing. It's a Colombia team with a lot of attacking talent, but still, you'd expect it, I suppose, to be Argentina, Colombia in the final. And then you'd expect, give Argentina as reigning world champions the edge in that particular matchup, but a little bit similar maybe to the Spain situation. Like Colombia are the informed team and seem like the best team in the tournament based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Speaking of quarterfinals, obviously Wimbledon quarterfinals taking place at the moment too. Novak Djokovic seems to be defying modern medicine and science, and somehow a knee injury that looked like was going to keep him out for months. He's now playing extremely well and doesn't seem to be impacting his performance at all. I don't know what's happened there. I don't know whether he was overreacting in the first place or whether the initial reports about how severe the injury was were wrong, and then they've just not bothered to correct it because it kind of adds to the narrative of Novak Djokovic's incredible abilities to recover from things. I don't know, but the conspiracy theorists will obviously point to the fact that he does weird things and potentially takes steroids or whatever it is, and he's probably done something illegal to get back in this kind of shape because it's a knee brace and then that's it. I mean, it's just like any 55-year-old playing tennis with a knee brace on, except he's also doing splits and sliding around the court and brushing aside 22-year-old professional tennis players in the process. But the other notable thing, Tommy Paul, the U.S. men's tennis has been suffering for a very long time. Tommy Paul and Taylor Fritz have both made the quarterfinals of Wimbledon. On the men's side, that's the first time two American men have made the quarterfinals of Wimbledon since 2000, which is pretty remarkable. So,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah,
Almost 25 years? Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's been
2000. Is that like Roddick?
I'm gonna guess Pete Sampras was one of them. It might be Sampras and Agassi. It could be Sampras and Roddick.
That Sampras and Agassi feels like that's 90s.
It was 90s, and Agassi obviously disappeared for a bit, but then he had his comeback in the early 2000s when he kind of. So it's. I mean, I can obviously look it up. It wasn't part of the stat that I saw, but so Sampras won Wimbledon in 2000, so he was obviously one of the quarterfinalists.
Okay.
And uh, the other quarterfinal list it was Agassi, who then lost in the semifinals.
Oh. I should have just went with the easy guess of Sampras and Agassi. Trying to get fancy with Roddick.
No, I mean it's obviously just before the Roddick period, a year or two away, and he did well at Wimbledon in terms of his grass suited him, but yeah. No, I mean, Americans men's tennis, it's been such a wonderful period over the last 20, 25 years for American women's tennis, but Americans men's tennis has suffered greatly. Um, it's been a dominant era for Europeans. So it's
What about the women's side, Eddie? Big shakeup.
big shakeup. I mean,
No?
Swiatek does what Swiatek does, which is have weird losses at times when you never would expect her to lose. I mean, that's kind of her MO at this point. If she's not on clay, she just likes losing to strange people in matches that you wouldn't expect her to lose to, having won the first set and looking like she was in cruise control, and then all of a sudden she's out. So, that's kind of what you expect. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, just a really surprising set of matchups. You obviously have Paolini, who did really well at the French Open, made the French Open final, now in the quarterfinals. So seems to be a little bit of a late bloomer in that respect. She looks like 16 years old, but she's actually 27, 28. Aside from, I
47.
mean, the highest seed, you got Rybakina, who's, kind of there or thereabouts in most tournaments. She's in there. But you're looking at a fourth seed, a seventh seed, a 13th seed, a 21st seed, a 31st seed, and a 19th seed, and one quarterfinal with two unseeded players. So not
Yeah.
a women's draw that's gone to form.
Well, I mean, but that just seems like women's tennis now the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when it's not on clay, because obviously Swiatek just dominates clay. So she's
Yeah.
kind of one constant that adds some consistency. But yeah, aside from that, every other surface, it feels every once in a while, it feels like someone's going to come around and dominate, and then they don't. Like, oh, this is Sabalenka's now going to be the dominant force on every other surface, and then she has her issues. Or Rybakina, I mean, who knows? If Rybakina wins it, then that could be her really taking that step forward in terms of, trying to become a dominant force in women's tennis. You got Ostapenko, who just seems like a head case, but has a lot of talent. Also not super fit, but um, yeah. Other than that, it's and look, you can make the argument that it's great for women's tennis, that it's exciting to go into tournaments when you don't know who's going to win, and that on lower seeded players or unseeded players can make deep runs in tournaments. Like maybe that's better than just being able to pencil Novak Djokovic into the final every tournament. But I think we both appreciate greatness, and maybe this is a period in women's tennis where there's not true greatness coming on the back of Serena Williams dominating the sport for 20 years. So it feels like a major shift. Um, but yeah, I guess it's exciting. I don't know who will win it. On the men's side of things, I feel
What about the men's? Djokovic?
I don't know. Sinner has looked quite good. So I'll say either Sinner or Djokovic, but I'll give Djokovic the edge. I do have those lingering doubts just about we're going to see him suddenly clutching his knee in a final once he's lost the opening set, and he will be limping around, using that as either an excuse or a motivation. I don't know which way it falls, but yeah,
What about
I'll say
Alcaraz?
I don't know, he's obviously defending champion, and he hasn't looked quite so. He had to work hard to beat Tiafoe, and he hasn't looked at his very best so far. But yeah, I mean, I think comparing the men's to the women's side, the men's side has three really compelling storylines, which is either it's Djokovic. I think this would be his seventh Wimbledon title, and just continuing his dominance and the incredible recovery from the injury at the French Open. Alcaraz, it's his chance to really cement himself as the player to beat if he's now won, back-to-back Wimbledons and winning the French Open and then Wimbledon back-to-back. And for Sinner, he's currently world number one. So, he won the Australian Open at the beginning of the tournament. If he can win Wimbledon, then he starts to feel like the real number one. So you've got three very compelling narratives on the men's side. You kind of don't really have that on the women's side. There could be some nice stories, some nice surprises, but you don't feel like there's kind of big statements being made.
Yeah.
Any other sporting topics to cover?
No, I was going to say, moving on from sports, I came across via Yahoo a quite interesting 4th of July story that had some pretty good quotes in it that I'd like to read to you. Not so much a laughing matter because a person has died, but the circumstances of the death and the quotes surrounding the death make it difficult not to laugh. So the headline is, man dies of massive head trauma after lighting firework off Uncle Sam top hat on July 4th. So this is a man who dressed up in a full Uncle Sam outfit and then decided the best move would be to light a firework off of his head. And it obviously ended very badly. I have a few quotes here that I want to read to you. The victim's wife reported that she watched her husband place a firework on her head, which she believes was done to show off. She then said she was trying to tell him not to do it when the firework went off. The paramedics obviously came, but it was too late. The wife said he ultimately died doing what he loved.
Showing off.
Quote, I thought he was just showboating before he wanted to set it on the ground. I didn't realize he had already lit it. Alan loved this holiday. He was a patriot. He was proud of his son and was excited to have a new daughter-in-law. He was living his best life last night. The video of Alan showed him dressed in a full Uncle Sam costume with the colorful hat on his head, smoking a cigarette in the yard outside his home while he lit the firework on his head. That is a man just doing what he loves.
can I do two small public service announcements? One in my anti-American trend. Americans, help yourselves. Don't use the term patriot after a guy's just blown his head off by setting off a firework. Like, start to use that term a little bit more selectively, and then maybe people can take it a bit more seriously. The second one, this goes out more to all of our listeners. Whenever you're doing something dumb, I think it's worth considering. If I were to die doing this, how stupid do I look? Like, I think that is a thought that sometimes you should have in your head. And when it comes to lighting fireworks, I think in particular that becomes a very smart thing to have. I mean, we obviously we know someone who blew some fingers off lighting fireworks. It's hard not to kind of laugh about it. Like, it's just as awful as it is, it's mildly amusing because of how stupid it is. Be careful.
Yeah. I don't get the firework thing. Like, it's nothing more than you trying to be cool, but to me it's not very cool because I'd rather just watch real fireworks at like a fireworks show that's obviously going off. If I liked fireworks,
I don't know,
I'd rather
Frank.
see the show than I'd like to see Uncle Sam pop one off his hat for like a little.
I'll counter that with one slight comment, Frank. If I went to a 4th of July party and a guy dressed as Uncle Sam blew his own head off with a firework, that's a 4th of July party that I'm talking about forever.
While smoking a cigarette. I
That
think
is,
that just is like that really just adds to the image of this guy in a full Uncle Sam just ripping a dart with a firework on his head.
that's like you're around a table on 4th of July and someone goes, "Hey, I once went to a crazy 4th of July party. You'll never know what happened." And you would just sit there being like, "I'm about to one up whatever this guy says. Like, no matter what he says, I am going to blow him out of the water."
Yeah, you think that's a good story? I got a story about a guy doing what he loves.
A true patriot.
He was living his best life last night
Until
until he wasn't.
until he wasn't.
It's terrible.
Yeah. No, I mean, unbelievable.
It is. I mean, I would say it's unbelievable, but that it continues to happen things like this year after year, it's obviously believable. I don't understand the appeal. I don't genuinely get it.
I think too, it's the thing that's like there are so many horror stories surrounding. Even as a kid, like when I lived in the U.S. as a kid, and like kids love to buy fireworks and play around with them and stuff. I was never into that. Like, I was happy to
No.
safely set off a firework and then like run away and watch it go off. But I wasn't, like I had friends who would like light them and throw them around or like shoot them out of their hands and stuff. I never, the horror stories, even at that age that I'd heard of like people injuring themselves was enough for me where I was like, I want nothing to do with this. The risk reward, it just seems all risk to me. But at this stage, like every year, there are these stories in the news about people doing dumb stuff with fireworks and, best case scenario, just blowing off part of their hand or something. I guess people just have a sense of invincibility and being like, not going to be me. I know how to safely light a firework off my head, not like those other idiots.
Oh, I just want to share something with you, Eddie, real quick. Just get your live reaction. This is video taken of the person slightly before the firework went off.
He looks a little bit better than I guess I thought he was going to. Why do you release this footage? If you're a friend or a family
I don't
member,
know.
like, how does this get out? So for those obviously not, it's him in his Uncle Sam outfit dancing around in the backyard with a cigarette in his mouth.
Doing a jig, one would say.
Yeah, and like the finger guns going, and then with a like smoke flares going off in the background.
I can't believe they actually have that footage.
Well, any other 4th of July or
With
non
that note, did you watch? Did you watch the new House of the Dragons?
No. I told you I'd be caught up by episode 5. That will be by Sunday. I'll have it all up to speed.
That would have been one really nice transition.
A lot of fireworks in the latest episode.
One could call them fireworks. So yeah, all right. Then we'll have to preview that after the finals of the Euro. I guess the Euro Sunday is the final, right?
Yeah, Sunday. So obviously Sunday the 14th. 14th being, what non-French people would call Bastille Day. French people get very upset when you call it Bastille Day. But yes, their equivalent, their closest equivalent to the 4th of July in terms of a national holiday. So if France are in the final, that's quite good timing for them. But we'll see.
So I had a question about this because for some reason I thought it was on a Saturday, and maybe it's always on a Sunday, which would partly kind of ruin this question. But we have a friend who is getting married in England around this time. It will not be potentially for the finals that England may or may not be participating in. But if it was, what would have to be done at the wedding? So it would be around 8 p.m. I think at London time.
Yeah, in the
it
UK, 8 p.m. Yeah,
which would be prime reception time.
Yeah, like you're sitting down to dinner.
Do you at least have to have a television put in to the reception for people to watch?
I think
because here's my argument, and I know I'll give you my quick synopsis. I know that it's like this is a day I've planned in my life, blah blah blah, and more so the bride than the groom, I'm sure. And I'm sure the last thing you want is to have a television on during the reception of your wedding. But my argument would be, would you rather just a TV, let's say no sound on, that people can watch, or 150 people on their phones the entire time watching it, or even worse, having one guy with his phone and 6 people huddled around him around a table watching it? I think the TV is actually a slightly better option than that.
Yeah, so I think bare minimum you would have to have a room somewhere, like if there's a bar space or something that has to have a TV with the match on. And you can't get annoyed with people going off to watch it. Maybe a little annoyed if they're there for the full 90 minutes. It might put people in a bit of an awkward situation of picking and choosing. If there's 5 minutes left in the first half and not a lot is happening, you might have to risk okay, I'm going back into the reception now for these 5 minutes plus the 15 minutes of halftime plus maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes of the second half. I can sneak out a solid 30 minutes of being present at the wedding right now. I think that's the bare minimum, but realistically, you might have to accept that you're going to have to put something in, because I think
you're right. Do you cancel the wedding?
No, I don't think you do. I think some people might think of it as almost a blessing because you turn your wedding into a real party with having that on. It depends a lot on the two people.
If they win.
If they win, yeah.
If they win, it's great, right? It's hey, when did you guys get married? The last time England won a major tournament, or it's conversely, it's the last time England fucked another major tournament, or not even the last time, the second to last time.
But, so I think you have to, but I mean, there were plenty of clips going around of people having their wedding, because obviously the last match was played on a Saturday. So that's the day you would get married. And there were plenty of clips going around on the internet of people having the match on at their wedding. like the penalty shootout at least. I guess that's the tough thing is like, do you want to put the full 90 minutes on? No, but you might, like, if it went to a penalty shootout, I think you've just got to find a way to put that on, because I think you're right. Otherwise you just know that everyone at a table, like someone's getting their phone out and putting it at the table and having the match on, and that's the focus of the event. So you may as well embrace it and try and have it be part of the wedding rather than like just having people, because even if you tried to stop people, then it would be like, well, I'll sneak off to the bathroom for the next 120 minutes.
for 100, for the next 2 hours. Oh God, that cocktail hour didn't sit right with me.
And just rip into their food. Like, no, I wasn't watching the Euros, just that your food is not good at this wedding. It's really upset my stomach.
Also, do you have a phone charger? Did you see, I know you're not the hugest fan of James Corden, but did you see he is currently in a play in London, and he postponed the start of the play and came out and watched the penalties with the crowd and with the cast members?
Yeah, that I hated. I mean, I hate James Corden and
I did it.
And I hated that. I hated every second of that clip. Because again, like that was him making himself the center of attention, because it's not like they found a way to actually put it on. It was him watching a phone relaying what was happening to the audience, which is like, just delay the start and tell everyone, look, if you want to get your phone out now and watch it, everyone watch it. The only thing I really loved about that clip is that someone in the audience obviously had their phone.
He's on delay.
Like slightly ahead, so you get the one guy cheering before, and then just kind of slightly stealing James Corden's moment. And also, too, if I'd paid to go to a play, like if I really wanted to watch England play, I wouldn't have gone to the play. But if I've paid,
but it should have maybe ended 45 minutes before, so you could have went to the pub pre-play, watched it, and then went to the play.
Look, you're cutting that close, and I think most people going to play on a Saturday night, probably not necessarily the biggest football fans in the world, just put on your fucking play. People have paid you to do something. Do it on time. Just get on with it. I'm sorry for you that because you're getting paid to perform, you can't watch the penalty shootout. You should have thought about that before you agreed to be in the play.
Hey, James Corden is a real patriot, supporting his country.
Well, hopefully he'll start setting fireworks off his head too. That would please me. That would be the first James Corden video I'd want to watch.
So I'll be recording remotely for that finals preview, but be down in nice, warm Southern California. Hopefully winning a hockey tournament. So maybe my tournament will coincide. We've already looked at, because we have people from the UK that are playing on our team, and they are not happy that if we somehow make it all the way to the semifinal games are during the finals of Euros. So we are looking for the nearest bar to the rink, and we will literally just get off the rink and go right to the bar without showering or anything, which will be absolutely disgusting. But
I'm sure.
Got to do what you got to do. That TGI Fridays is going to love us.
I think you could squeeze in a quick shower. I think that would be possible.
Well, they don't have showers at the rink, so
wait,
probably
really?
not then. Most wouldn't, I don't think. They have locker rooms, but not showers.
Oh, man, that's awful.
Yeah. We have to go back to the hotel and get showered.
Oh. But anyway.
There might be, one of the locker rooms might, but again, there's going to be like 400 people there, so.
But yeah, no, I'll be back in Paris for the final. Not for the semifinal, but the final itself, I will be there, so let's see.
How much, Eddie, real quick, we'll finish up with, how much does an England-France final scare you? Does it make you more nervous or more excited?
No, well, obviously, no, I think that's kind of worst possible outcome for me, just because the French won't really care if England win, because they'll play up the mitigating circumstances, which is, well, Mbappe was injured. If he hadn't had his nose broken, and they'll even probably argue that should have been a foul, even though that was him heading the back of someone's shoulder, but that's okay. But they'll play that part up, and then they'll be like, well, England were better than, on paper you're supposed to be better than us anyway. So they'll run through all of that, and well, we won the Euros recently. We won the World Cup. We won the Euros not that long ago. I think they'll mostly do that. Whereas if they win, they'll be insufferable. So it's not lose-lose, but it's like draw-lose for me. So I'd much rather play Spain in the final and then not have to worry about any of that. And then just, I'll have French friends who might support England, probably will support Spain. I don't care. But already I have some of my French friends who I'll speak to about this tournament, and they're like, oh, England haven't been good. Switzerland should have beaten them. Slovakia should have beaten them. It's like, France haven't been good either. Portugal should have beaten them. Belgium, okay, it was probably even, and you weren't great. Netherlands should have beaten you in the group stages. But for them, they're like, well, yeah, but we're France. I don't know. If anyone who listens to this who thinks I hate America, I really hate France. I mean, that's. I'm indifferent.
You thought anti-America was his stance.
No, you got me all wrong. I hate France, and I live here, and I hate it.
That right there sums up you.
I should actually say this. I don't hate France. As a country, I love France. I hate French people. That's the real thing. And I try and build my life in France, avoiding French people as much as possible.
Well, with that, I guess we have to call it a day.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.